this morning to actually demonstrate the Primo. It's a nice little smoker. It's a lot larger than most. I love mine in the respect that it's an oval shape, and you can put a lot more meat on this than you normally can on any other product out there. This is a fairly simple process. Normally, if this wasn't a brand new grill, what we would do at this point is we would actually open this door down at the bottom here, and we would scrape out all the old coals and get it cleaned out for burning. This is kind of essential because this particular smoker is all about airflow. And if you trap the airflow and the air cannot flow up properly, then it will not cook properly. So what you're looking for here in this process is to make it clean enough so that you get a decent airflow. All right, first thing we're gonna do here is we're gonna remove the racks, set them to the side, and we're gonna get our hardwood charcoal, and that is important. This process is basically all about starting not using any charcoal lighter at all. There's several different ways to light this. An electric tool out there you can actually plug up with an electrical cord, and it's an electric heater and it lights extremely well. There's another method where they have gel packs and all kinds of different ways you can start this process. The main thing is like I was talking about earlier, is do not use lighter fluid because it will definitely taint the meat. When you're lighting this, it's best to actually have this door down here wide open and the top of this wide open, because here again, I was explaining earlier, this is all about airflow. And you want it to be wide open when you're starting this, because most of the time on most meats, you're gonna sear them before you slow it back down or cool it back down and put the meat back on and cook it at a lower temperature. And in this process right now, I'm actually heating this up to around 450 to 500 degrees. And here again, that same process, this is all about, I need to sear the meat. And when you sear the meat, you're actually creating, a barrier there so that holds the moisture into the meat while you're cooking. We're high enough temperature at this point where I can actually open this back up and put our grills back in. Obviously they're cold at this point, so it's not a big deal. But if they're hot, you're gonna wanna use this tool to grab it because they're extremely hot. They're somewhere in the neighborhood of 350 degrees and they will definitely burn you. I'm actually gonna stir the coals a bit at this point, so I can even out my charcoal a bit. As you can see, we got a pretty decent little fire going in here, so at this point, I'm pretty assured that it's gonna stay lit no matter what. If you notice, when I opened it, it slid shut, so you wanna pay attention when you're in the middle of cooking that it doesn't close, especially when you're trying to heat up. At this point, we are basically waiting for it to heat up to a higher temperature so that we're ready to start cooking. Cooking today is actually beef loins, and I'm gonna season these in 3 different methods. The first one I'm gonna do here is a product that you can buy at pretty much any grocery store. You're gonna coat this fairly liberally and let it sit for just a little while. Probably 20 minutes at a minimum, I would think. What you wanna do is test the meat, see how moist it is, because the rub's not gonna stick to the meat if it's dry. Now this is a hand rub, and you're gonna want to be liberal with it. If you notice, they're sitting out in open air right now. One of the things I'm trying to do at the moment is they were in the refrigerator all night. So I'm actually trying to let the meat warm up to somewhat close to room temperature at this point. When you stick a cold piece of meat on a grill like this, it actually will get a little tough depending on how cold the temperature actually is. All right, this third method, I will be using olive oil. This is more of a traditional thing that most people do with rump roast or something in the oven, because basically I'm using kosher salt and pepper. Now we've got this coated with olive oil at this point. We're gonna sprinkle the salt on it, and you're gonna be liberal with it. At this point, we're ready to put the meat on. I'm using the temperature gauge here on this particular Primo. Right now, it's around 425 degrees. This temperature is actually coming back up because I had shut it down for a moment to control the temperature. I'm going to open this back up. Always be careful when you're opening this thing, because when it's shut like this, if it's completely shut down, when you open it, you're introducing air and it could flash out at you. So be really careful when you're opening it. Just burp it is what we call it. Just barely open it for a second, let a little air into it, and then open it on up. nice noise. As we talked about before, this process that we're doing at the moment is actually braising the meat. So we want the temperature to be really high for a few moments on each side because we're sealing the meat to seal the juices in. Our next step we're going to do here is I'm actually going to pull the meat back off because we're going to cool this down depending on how you like your meat cooked, whether you want to smoke it or whether you're actually going to grill it. Get the meat back off it, I'm going to introduce wood chips into this so that we get a little smoke and we get a little smoke flavor. Normally if I was going to smoke for a long period of time, I would actually cool it down to somewhere around 250 degrees. When you're cooking this way, the best thing to do is have a thermometer handy so you can actually test what the meat temperature is. That way you're not guessing. Okay, we've been cooking them roughly for about an hour and 45 minutes at the moment. We're at internal temperature right now of 140 degrees. I like to take mine off somewhere between 135 and 140 degrees because they're going to have to rest for a while. They will continue to cook after they've been wrapped in aluminum foil. As you can see, we're still quite rare on the large ends of this piece of meat versus the smaller pieces of meat. So the reason we're taking off a little early is because we are going to continue to cook on the larger piece of the meat so that we can get somewhat of an even temperature through. Ooh,